3, 2, 1, go! Shalom, shalom, shalom. I am your host, Elder Priest Sabal Alum. I am God's made man, and welcome to a late as hell edition of Friday Night Heat. And first of all, I want to say Ashar Ra'ashpar Yum to all Israel. I want to wish the whole nation of Israel a happy first fruits. I know me and the brothers in HOI New York, New Jersey, HOI Philly, HOI DMV. We had a good first fruits, even though a brother pulled up late as hell, like some Sunday heat, but still I had a good time. And Yahweh Shai with the brothers. And I want to give shout outs to HOI New York, New Jersey, the mother chapter, HOI DMV, HOI Philly, HOI Atlanta, HOI North Carolina, HOI LA, HOI Vegas, HOI Houston, HOI Memphis. I even heard we got brothers in Seattle, and I just want to say shalom to them. And if there's any other HOI camps, I think we got brothers in Cincinnati. If there's any other HOI camps I forgot to mention, it's not an oversight, shalom to them, but it's also a good thing because that means that HOI is growing exponentially. And along with HOI, I want to give shout outs to Believers of the Way, Soldiers of Yahweh, WFI, those brothers, Sakari, Genesis, Wisdom of Yahweh, Stream of Wisdom, Anointed House of Saints, Soldiers of Yahweh, if I said them already, my bad. Rum Gadal Gabarium, High Exalted Warriors. Shout outs to those brothers. As well, shout outs to the Saints. And all the other brother, Light of Zion, Ambassadors of Christ, Shield of Wisdom, Lions of Israel, and all the other brothers, all the other camps out here. Oh, Salakia, also give a shout out to the brothers, Heirs to the Kingdom, and all the other brothers that are out here in the truth, putting out this word whenever they can to get this word out to our people. And I also want to give shout outs to, you can't forget the sisters, because none of this is possible without their support. And I also want to say I'm looking forward to the 4th of Yulad, rebuke in a couple of weeks. And I want to give shout outs to Hebrew businesses. Shout out to 144K Shirts and Sauces. The brother got excellent shirts and sauces. Staffs for Israel. That's on this. And a lot of these are on Instagram. You go to Instagram, 144, a lowercase k, Shirts and Sauces. It's all one word. Check the brother out. 144K Shirts and Sauces. Staffs for Israel. That's staffs, the number 4, Israel. And the brother has very ornate staffs that brothers and sisters can buy, or brothers can buy and use. Also, give shout out to Captain Baruch of HOI New York, New Jersey. That brother is selling jewelry. Elder Zabak is either selling leather tassels, holy day calendars, and we got next t-shirts. So you want to get at him, you can go Kanai Zabak on Facebook, or just type in Zabak on Instagram, and you can reach the elder and you can see what he got. Also, Glorious and Warlike Apparel, one of the first businesses I ever shouted out on Friday Night Heat. That's glorious.and.warlike on Instagram. Another Hebrew business I want to shout out is a sister, Zuriel's Fashions, ZURIEL''S Fashions. The sister makes garments that are straight fire. Like I always say, if I had the disposable income like that, I would easily drop 800-900 or a band for one of her garments. No problem. Also want to give a shout out to Rayak's Tassels, RAYACH''S, Rayak's Tassels, and also Mia's Tassels. Both of these sisters sell and make tassels, and they're both on Instagram. You can get to Rayak's Tassels on Facebook as well. Also want to give a shout out to another business, or two more businesses on Facebook. So Royal, they sell fringed up t-shirts and everything. That's SEW, not SO Royal. You know, it's a wordplay. Homonyms. SEW Royal. And also, I want to give a shout out to the sister Saparia. She does 12 Tribes beard products. To give a shout out to her. Also, I need to give a shout out to Sister Yash Yasharala of HOI Philly. She the one that made this shirt I have on right now for Friday Night Heat. She made me this shirt with a matching hat. So, because, you know, I'm always giving her a shout out whenever I do Friday Night Heat. And also, when I'm doing Friday Night Heat, give me the name of your Hebrew business, and I will give you a shout out on a future broadcast of Friday Night Heat. And I do not charge for promotion. I'll say, well, yeah, I'll shout out your business, but you got to cash at me this month. No, I don't do that. I do not charge for promotion. It's just as they say these days, for the love of the game, to get brothers and sisters' names out there for these different Hebrew businesses. That's the reason I do this. And also, Brother Yatai Yasharala, he's out there with his rib Yash. They're doing the truck driver thing. And they're also selling paintings and calendars and wristbands and beard kits and other merchandise. That's YASH Yash Yasharala. Her English name is Stephanie Greenfield. Also, she goes by the Instagram handle of Black Pearl 197150. That's BLAKPERL 197150. And Yash and Yatai Yasharala, YAHTAI. That's how you can get at both of them. And now that we've done all the salutations, and now that we've gone into, you know, brothers and sisters that I want to shout out in the nation, as always, this is Tea's Tea, mint green tea, organic, unsweetened. So, as I'm always saying, remember to hydrate. Now, I know it's been a good while, a hot minute, since I last gave y'all some Friday Night Heat. This particular Friday Night Heat comes by request of the elders of Bat Kanai. Now, that's something else I've been meaning to say as well. Something else I want to put out there. When it comes to Friday Night Heat, I do take requests. It's not a problem. Same thing, just get in the comments and let me know what's up. I do take requests for Friday Night Heat. Now, for this particular episode of Friday Night Heat, I want to talk about the brother Malcolm X. There were two landmarks in his life that have passed by, or two landmarks in Malcolm's life that occurred this year. First landmark, May 21st, which was a couple of weeks ago, would have been the brother's centennial, his 100th birthday. Also, February 21st, 1965. This past February 21st would have been, or it was, the 60th. This past February 21st was the 60th anniversary of his assassination. So, yeah. Now, even though Malcolm X, even though the man was in the Nation of Islam and he eventually left the Nation of Islam, even those of us in the truth, in the knowledge as Israelites, we recognize how much of a powerful man he was to try to advance our people and to try to stop the oppression of our people. I personally read a little bit of the autobiography of Malcolm X, but I did see the movie that Spike Lee made in '92. And I was living in a town called Catskill, New York back then, where they would not have shown that movie in the little movie theater on Main Street. You wanted to go see Malcolm X, you had to go to Kingston or you had to go to Albany to see it. But in that little movie theater, in that predominantly white town in Greene County, New York, they would not have shown the Malcolm X movie. And then I remember when I was in 6th grade, we had the school psychologist. The school psychologist was a so-called black woman. And she said, between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, who do you think is remembered more? And I could have told her this back then, but I remembered I said, no. The reason why everybody loves Martin Luther King is because Martin Luther King was running around preaching nonviolence. Martin Luther King was advocating for nonviolence when these damn people were being violent with him. And that's one reason why Malcolm X had a great deal of resentment for civil rights leaders and people like Martin Luther King. The reason why nobody wants black people to remember Malcolm X is because Malcolm X was for violence, but not just arbitrary random violence. Malcolm X was, and this is how the nation got down. Malcolm X was not a just arbitrarily violent man. Malcolm X was a very big advocate of violence in self-defense. But see, the white people of his time weren't trying to hear that. They loved Martin Luther King and all his talk about peace and peaceful protest, peaceful resistance and nonviolence. Meanwhile, Brother Malcolm was like, hey, F all of that. We coming out here, we trying to appeal to these people and appeal to their better judgment. We're trying to reason with these people like human beings. We're not initially being violent, but if they're being violent with us, then we gonna be violent with them. We will defend ourselves. Everybody loves talking about that picture of Malcolm in his window with an AK. The sad part about that was he didn't have to do that because of the so-called white man. The sad part about that was that Malcolm had to do that because of Elijah Muhammad loyalists in the Nation of Islam. Now, Malcolm became the man he was because of his upbringing. Malcolm was born somewhere in the Midwest on May 19th, 1925. So yes, this past May 19th would have been his 100th birthday. I think he grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. His father was a Garveyite. He preached the ideas of Marcus Garvey. And see, everybody talks about black history. And the thing about Marcus Garvey is this. I live in Brooklyn. We have a street in Bedford-Stuyvesant that is named after Marcus Garvey Boulevard. But see, the Edomites in Brooklyn didn't want to let it go that quickly, because even though the street has been renamed Marcus Garvey Boulevard for quite some time, you can still see street signs for Sumner Avenue. Same thing with Malcolm X. We have a Malcolm X Boulevard up here in Bed-Stuy as well. Now, even though the street is named Malcolm X Boulevard, you can still see street signs for Reed Avenue, R-E-I-D. Malcolm X was Malcolm X, Brotha Minister El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. White Law Reed was a white man that owned land in that general area. And again, you can still see street signs for Reed Avenue. But I am glad that in Brooklyn, they decided to make it where they did rename Reed Avenue Malcolm X Boulevard in honor of Brotha Minister. And again, I did see the movie with Denzel and read a little bit of the autobiography of Malcolm X. Now, even though Malcolm X is, and this is what some people say about so-called Black History Month, it's like, yo, they talk about the same 3 or 4 men and the same 3 or 4 women every February. They don't really dig into any other Black history. Well, one thing I do have to say is it isn't their responsibility to do that. And even though Brother Malcolm is one of those same 4 people that they talk about, the man earned all the honor and the praise that is always given to him by our people. And even though they love Martin Luther King for his whole "I Have a Dream" speech, I'm not trying to stray off. Martin Luther King, everybody loves "I Have a Dream," but Martin Luther King also made a speech called "The Two Americas," but nobody talks about that. All you got to do is go to YouTube and type in "The Two Americas." I listened to it one day as my father asked me to, and boop, there it goes. But see, Brother Malcolm, because Brother Malcolm's father, Reverend Earl Little, was a Garveyist, and he preached about Marcus Garvey and the Back to Africa movement, the brother ended up being assassinated by the Triple K Society or some other group of Edomites. And then and remember, the man had about 8 or 9 brothers and sisters. And they all ended up wherever. And that's why when Malcolm got of age, he was working on a train selling sandwiches and enduring more blatant racism. And then he got settled in Boston. And again, man, the transformation that Malcolm made in his life, he was walking around Boston wearing what they call a conch, which is basically when brothers would process their hair. They would put lye, a whole bunch of other ingredients in their hair, basically burning their hair to make it straight, trying to look like Edomites. A lot of our people had that little self-pride. And I must say, when it comes to doing the biography of Brother Malcolm's life, the movie was pretty accurate. He was in Boston. Basically, yeah, Malcolm was in when he was known as Detroit Red. And there was another Red. When he was in when he was in Boston and he was in the street hustling, his street name was Detroit Red. There was another Red, Chicago Red. And that Chicago Red turned out to be the late comedian Red Fox. And the two of them, and that was something that Red Fox spoke about. Like, yeah, he knew Malcolm X. They were homeboys. They were road dogs. They ran together. And Malcolm X was a medium to dark-skinned brother that had red hair. That's where the red part of his nickname came from. There was Detroit Red and Malcolm was Detroit Red and Red Fox was Chicago Red. And the two of them got down and they hung out and did a whole lot of stuff together. But then when Malcolm was out in Boston and he was hustling and he was doing his thing, even though he had such an upbringing, the fact of the matter remains, you reap what you sow. And yes, that's what happened. Most of the time he got caught because that's what they did. They did burglaries. Malcolm and his man Shorty got caught doing burglaries. Most of the time, back in that day, first offense, burglary, you get 2 years in state prison. Malcolm and Shorty got 10 years. And he said, it wasn't because we robbed. Our crime wasn't robbing houses. Our crime was, he was in court and they basically had him up on a litany of charges. 10 years, sentences to run concurrently. And no, that was true. He's like, yeah, yo, shorty passed out in the courtroom. When that judge ran through all the charges on them when the judge ran through the indictment and ran through all of them charges, shorty passed out in the courtroom because he thought that the judge hit them with like a century's worth of time until Malcolm broke down for him what concurrently meant. And Malcolm got his education and turned his life around while he was locked up. And it was while he was locked up that he found Islam. Also, there's a brother on YouTube called Real Reels, RealReelz. And what he does is he makes videos with AI. These are some fire videos. Check the brother out. He does a lot of what if scenarios, both in real life and in cinema. Some of the scenarios he does are, what if Michael Jackson had been found guilty on that child molestation charge back in 2005? What if Snoop Dogg had been found guilty on that murder charge back in 94? What if OJ had been found guilty? Also, he does cinema, alternate realities. He does stuff like The Warriors, cult classic, excellent flick. What happened to the Warriors after the movie, and the origin of the baseball Furies. Where did they come from? And what if Ricky had lived in Boys in the Hood? And one of the scenarios I'm just giving a background of the type of videos the brother does. One of the scenarios that the man does is, suppose Malcolm hadn't found Islam while he was locked up. And basically what the brother says is that what the one theory that the brother offers is, if Malcolm hadn't found the Nation of Islam while he was in prison, the man would have still hated Esau. He still would have had that fire that he had. It would have amounted to wasted potential because he had no direction. And that was one thing about the nation. Now, all of the internal conflicts and all of the craziness with Elijah Muhammad inside, when Malcolm first came home, that was one prop you got to give the nation. The nation did give the man some discipline, and the nation did give him a sense of direction when he first came home, and for quite a while after that. Because, remember, through the nation, he eventually met Betty, and they had 4 daughters. And he lived his life with Betty. And went out across the country, did his speaking engagements. But personally, I kind of figured that somebody had slipped a mole in the Nation of Islam when Elijah Muhammad put the word out that no Muslim minister was to say anything about the Kennedy assassination. And then Malcolm got right up and said, yeah, the Kennedy assassination is the so-called white man's chickens coming home to roost. And he said, yeah, those weeds that you have put out in the Garden of America, those weeds have come back to choke not only one of your biggest gardeners, your chief gardener. And then he said it straight up. The Kennedy assassination was America's chickens coming home to roost. And when you send chickens out into the field, and when they come back, they not coming back to your neighbor's barnyard. They not coming back to your friend's barnyard. They're coming back to your barnyard. Your chickens are going to come home to roost. And that's basically how you can describe this tiff that's going on in D.C. right now between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And personally, my thing is like, yeah, what did you think would happen if you bring to you an Edomite that grew up in apartheid era South Africa. And then Donald Trump is accusing Elon of disrespecting the office of the president. Yeah, the chicken's coming home to roost. That's what Malcolm said about the Kennedy assassination. He said, yeah, America's chickens have come home to roost. And he said, chicken, as a farm boy, chickens coming home to roost doesn't make me sad. It makes me glad. And that's when Elijah shut him down for 90 days. Because, you know, again, even though I personally wouldn't agree with an order like that, you know, that's one thing about the Nation of Islam. They were very strict, very disciplined, very orderly group of brothers. There's two brothers that I listen to from the Nation from time to time. Nair Muhammad and Rizza Islam. Because they might be Nation of Islam and we in the truth, but the brothers do present some powerful information. But Malcolm had to get shut down for 90 days because he said that, and you know, Elijah Muhammad portrayed by Al Freeman Jr. talking about the nation loved this man. And Malcolm didn't care. And again, there was a lot of internal stuff going on with the nation and with Elijah Muhammad. And that's why Malcolm eventually had to leave the nation. He, as they like to say on social media these days, after he took his Hajj to Mecca, which is something all Muslims are encouraged to do at least once, given that their financial situations allow it, the man reevaluated his whole belief system. When he said, you know, he went to Hajj and made his pilgrimage and he saw black Muslims and white Muslims and Muslims from all different ethnicities worshiping at the same. And I wouldn't dare call Malcolm a sellout because he changed his ideology. But even the Apocrypha says that traveling can expand your horizons as an individual. Now, Malcolm joined the Nation of Islam because he was a black man that grew up in America. Malcolm would have been what you call the greatest generation. This is the generation that came before the silent generation. The silent generation being people that were born between 1928 and 1946. Malcolm was born in the generation before that. And he had to grow up in America, where no matter what section of the country you went to, the racism was very, very blatant. So that's why he joined the nation, and then he went around saying all white people were devils. That was based on his experience. But then he took his Hajj. And he saw those Muslims of all different nationalities and had to, as the kids say today, he reevaluated life. Came back from Mecca and grew a beard and formed the Organization of African American Unity after he left the Nation of Islam. Again, between all the internal conflicts, the stuff with Elijah Muhammad and all the different women he'd fathered children by, he said, Denzel said it, internal struggles within the Nation of Islam have forced me out of the Nation of Islam. And here's the thing. Here's something nobody talks about. A couple of points I wanted to bring up. Malcolm's father was a Garveyist. And everybody thinks that all of these important figures in Black history were all on the same wavelength. Not the case. Marcus Garvey had the Back to Africa movement, and they sent out W.E.B. Marcus Garvey had the Back to Africa movement, and W.E.B. Du Bois basically sabotaged them. And yes, when Malcolm first came on the scene, he had a whole lot of static with Martin Luther King and a whole lot of civil rights leaders. And that static is understandable. You got our babies and our elder women, the most precious of our human resources. You got them out there getting dog sicked on them, getting beat upside the head with nightsticks, and getting sprayed with high pressure water hoses. You got our people risking their lives just so they can sit at the same table and eat with our enemies. And it was Malcolm, and as far as school, it was Malcolm that said, it is a fool that lets his enemy teach his children, which is why in the Israelite community, there are a whole lot of people that prefer to homeschool their children. And even not in the Israelite community, just people, period, because they have a whole lot of mess and a whole lot of they have the alphabet ideology and a whole lot of other stuff that's being taught in these schools. And there are a lot of people that don't want their children exposed to that, which is why they choose to homeschool them. And in the Malcolm X movie, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Malcolm did say, why would you want to keep a powder keg in your house and you got a whole bunch of fire going on around the powder keg? What you do is the powder keg blows up in the house and then the house is destroyed. The powder keg being the black community. Take the powder keg out of the house and then, hey, whatever goes on, goes on. But the house is still intact. And that's why he said Elijah Muhammad preaches separation between the so-called black man and the so-called white man, which is basically how God intended it. The Most High never meant for, the Most High never meant for united colors of Benetton, all nations of people come together, be one, and being kind to one another. Like Cornbread said in Sinners. Oh, and yeah, stay tuned, because that's for Friday Night Heat. That's coming next. Now, I know you're going to get on there and everybody has their breakdown of the movie Sinners. And I got mine too, because I did get to see it. Even Zabak has his. And again, if I didn't mention it before, that's how this particular Friday Night Heat is coming to you, by request of the Elder Zabak. And this is not because Zabak is the elder. No, Zabak actually hit me up and asked me, like, Sabal, do you do requests for Friday Night Heat? And I said, yeah, what's up? And he said, can you do one on Malcolm X? And here we go. And again, I do apologize because it's been a while since I last gave y'all some Friday Night Heat. Here you go. Listen, the work schedules are crazy. We over here on the plantation. Remember, Israel, Micah 2:10 says, arise, for this is not your rest. And then also the book of Daniel said, chapter 7, and he will wear out the saints of the Most High. So y'all can apply those two scriptures to the reason why it's been so long since I gave y'all some heat. Because, look, Israel, I'm going to be honest with y'all. The way my schedule and the way my life has been going lately, anytime I get a chance to sit still for a little while, that's exactly what I do. Sit my yellow behind still. And a lot of time I'm so tired that I sit still. And there's a lot of stuff I want to do that I don't get done. But while we were at the first fruits, everybody was talking about, yo, Sabal, he the whole, Zabak and Amnawala was like, Sabal, what's up, Ak? Heataholics. You got us heataholics going through withdrawal. What's up with that heat, Ak? What's up with the heat? And I kept telling everybody, hey, listen, when I get home from Pentecost, first fruits, the Ash Par Yum, Feast of Pentecost, Feast of Weeks, Early Harvest, whatever name you want to give it, either one of those will do. I said, yo, Akiyum, when I get home, I got you. And here we go. Zabak had asked me to talk about El Haj Malik El Shabazz, otherwise known as Malcolm X. Now, I gotta be honest, he did do this a couple of weeks ago. So I am a little behind with that, but better late than never. Again, this past May 19th would have been the brothers' centennial, his 100th birthday. And it's been 60 years since the brother got killed. The man was killed at the age of 39. And I remember when I was living with these people in Catskill, I was living with the parents of a guy my mother had been married to. And the lady saying, they killed Malcolm X. They killed Malcolm X. Basically trying to say, y'all talk all this noise about white people, but Malcolm X was killed by 4 black men. But here's the thing. Yes, Malcolm X was murdered in front of his wife and children by 4 black men, but did they act alone? These men, I won't call them brothers. These men did not just wake up one morning and decide, we gonna kill Malcolm X. No. Malcolm X's assassination was planned. And the federal government had wanted to get rid of him. Because, unfortunately, when it comes to those of our leaders, this is something that you'll see on Facebook repeatedly. The greatest threat to white supremacy is black masculinity. And Malcolm represented black masculinity. It may have been through the Nation of Islam, but still, white supremacy is afraid of that. And I think it was after his assassination, either after his assassination or after COINTELPRO was used to destroy the Black Panther Party, that J. Edgar Hoover said, there will never be a black messiah unless we create him. They took that to heart. So much to heart that in the state of New York, you can't even name a child messiah. Straight up, look it up. They have a list. The state of New York has a list of about 10 or 15 names that you cannot give to your child. Some of the names on the list include Santa Claus, Jesus Christ, even though that isn't his actual name, Adolf Hitler, 1069. I don't know who thought about that. The at or any other symbol. You can't call your child king, queen, majesty, or messiah. And also, you can't use Roman numerals like Robert Marrow. You can't say Robert Marrow V. You would have to put, you'd have to put the number or the series. You would have to put Robert Marrow the 5th, like Robert Marrow the number 5 with a TH. You can't. I think you can't use Roman numerals because when they put it in a computer database, it probably wouldn't go. So for men that have suffixes after their names, you'd probably have to use the number rather than Roman numerals. But yes, J. Edgar Hoover said there will not be a black messiah unless we create him. And again, they took that so much to heart that in the state of New York, it is illegal to name your child messiah. Now, honestly, I may be doing a little too much right there. But yeah. And again, that had to be either after Malcolm was killed or after COINTELPRO was used to dismantle the Black Panther Party. But all in all, Brother Malcolm X, formerly known as Detroit Red, the man was known as Satan while he was locked up because he would act anger he was carrying. And that was legitimate anger. Most of the time you get a first time burglary offense usually gets you 2 years, and he got hit with a whole dime. Yeah, that would make anybody angry. But again, he figured out why it was. It's like, no, we didn't get 10 years because we robbed houses. We got 10 years for effing them white girls. And the way the white man, and honestly, a lot of so-called black men, we need to cherish our women the way the so-called white man and the other races cherish theirs. Like white supremacy, not just the whole system of things, but you do have people in this country that formally, Formally, those are two words that people get confused. There's formally, like formal, like, or formerly, like used to be. But there are people in this country that formally identify as white supremacists. And they have a motto that is called the 14 words. Now, there are two different versions of the 14 words. Version number 1 goes thusly: we must secure the existence of our people and, okay, we must secure the existence of our people and a future. Okay, that doesn't come up to 14, but it kind of goes somewhere along those lines. We must protect the existence of our people and secure a future for white. Okay. Again, it goes something, the first 14 words go something along the lines of, we must protect our people and so we must protect our people and secure the existence of a future for white children. It's 14 words that go something along those lines. That's the first 14 words. And the second 14 words goes, because the beauty of the white Aryan woman must not perish from. Okay. Yeah, that's how the second 14 words goes. Because if I don't, you know what? If I don't get it dead on, I'll put both 14 words ideologies, I'll put them both in the comments. Because the beauty of the white Aryan woman must not, because the beauty of the white Aryan woman must not perish from the earth. Yeah, that's the second one. Yeah, because the beauty of the white Aryan woman must not perish from the earth. That's the second 14 words. The first 14 words, okay. Oh, okay, I got the first one. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. Yes, there you go. The first 14 words, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. If that's not hitting it dead on, I know it's something. It's a lot like that. Again, the first 14 words, we must secure the future of our people, and we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. That's the first 14 words. The second 14 words is, because the beauty of the white Aryan woman must not perish from the earth. And what you'll also see is a lot of white supremacists have 1488. 14 being the 14 words, and 88 translates alphabetically to Heil Hitler. But yes, the reason why I got into all of that is because of the second 14 words. The second 14 words is why Brother Malcolm got 10 years instead of 2. But the man turned an extreme negative into a positive. He went to prison, found Islam, and became the man that we all know, love, and respect. Like when Ozzie Davis was giving the eulogy at the end of the movie, and he said he represented black manhood, our shining black manhood. Now, of course, when you come into the truth, you start to learn that it's not quite like that, but yet and still, even if you later on in life wake up to this truth that you're an Israelite, you still give respect to Brother Malcolm because of what he tried to do for our people. Obviously, Elder Zabak admires Brother Malcolm, which is why he asked me to do this Friday Night Heat, and I was glad to oblige him. And forgive me for being so late about it, but here we go. That being said, I am Elder Priest Sabal Alum. This has been a late as hell edition of Friday Night Heat. I want to say Shalom wa Ashar Ashpar Yum to the nation of Israel. Kwum Yashala, strength and honor. Shalom. I'm out.